comes. Nabasi.
This UCSD TV program is presented by University of California Television. Like what you learn? Visit our website or follow us on Facebook and Twitter to keep up with the latest programs. The Sam and Rose Stein Institute for Research on Aging is committed to advancing lifelong health and well-being through research, professional training, patient care, and community service. As a nonprofit organization at the University of California San Diego School of Medicine, our research and educational outreach activities are made possible by the generosity of private donors. It is our vision that successful aging will be an achievable goal for everyone. To learn more, please visit our website at aging.ucsd.edu.
It really is an honor and a privilege to introduce our speaker tonight. We've been so excited at the Stein Institute the last few months about this talk. So we're so thrilled to have Dr. Darlene Menini here with us tonight. Dr. Menini is author of the Emotional Toolkit and creator of the UCLA undergraduate well-being course, Life Skills. She has a PhD in clinical psychology and a master's in public health. Dr. Menini lectures and designs interventions that highlight three key areas: resilience, emotional intelligence, and mindfulness. With an interest in media's power to inspire and enlighten, Dr. Menini founded and was artistic director of UCLA's Kaleidoscope Theater, a performance troupe using storytelling to positively impact well-being. She also hosted the Emotional Toolkit series on XM Radio and the Dr. Darlene Menini Show for Clear Channel in Los Angeles. And she also was a contributor to Dr. Drew's TV show, Life Changers. Her work has been featured on media outlets such as CNN, PBS, NPR. Dr. Menini is currently on staff at UCLA Extension, where she develops programs to help people thrive in the workplace. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Darlene Menini.
Thank you. I apologize for being so short. The turnout for this was so wonderful that the only thing I could think of is that everybody needed a talk on resilience, because today is April 15th, tax day. So I hope that we will all be soothed and relaxed today. It really is such an honor to be invited to come and speak here at the Stein Institute. I was so thrilled to be invited because I feel like I'm among kindred spirits here. And so much of what we talk about, in not just aging, but in life in general, is what's wrong with us and how do we repair. And there is a place for that. There is a place to soothe our psyche and our ailing body. But there is also a time to say what is right with us, what is good, what is positive, and also what is possible. I think that's something that we never really hear about, what is possible in our lives. And so the fact that, this is the work that you're doing here is near and dear to my heart, and by the turnout, I'm sure near and dear to yours as well. I know that the center is doing a lot of innovative work on wisdom, resilience, and optimism, and we're learning just how powerful those traits can be in enhancing our well-being and our lives in general. And it's not relegated to any one particular population. It's something that people need to learn from 9 to 90. And the good news is that all of the things that we are talking about are things that can be learned. And that's the part that's so exciting to me. So what I want to do, I have a few goals for tonight. And one of them is, let me just find my clicker here. I want to introduce you, if you don't already know, to 6 scientists that are doing really fascinating research the reason I like what they're doing is because it's directly relevant to your life. And I call them my scientific rock stars. So I'm going to introduce you to 6 scientific rock stars. In addition, I want to talk about what specific strategies they have gleaned from their research that have direct relevance to your life. And my goal is that when you leave here this evening, you will have somewhat of an emotional toolkit that you can draw from and use these tools immediately for your own well-being. So one of the things I want to start off by looking at is just to give you a little background story of why it is that I am so passionate about what I do and the idea of well-being in general. I grew up on the East Coast. We've talked about this, lots of people here from the East Coast, in a very tight-knit New York Italian family. And we grew up on the coast of Long Island, so that means we spent a lot of our summers at the beach, and my brothers and I playing silly pranks on each other. So I really had a very wonderful childhood. And as part of that, though, also was my father had a lot of chronic illnesses. He had 5 heart attacks, 2 bypass surgeries, cancer. And watching my dad and my mom endure a lot of these conditions really impacted me greatly in 2 ways. One is that it helped me realize the preciousness of life. And it also made me very interested in understanding what does it take to live a resilient life and to have well-being, no matter what the circumstances might be. So when it came time to go to college, I became interested in studying both psychology and behavioral health. And behavioral health really just looks at what are the behaviors and the actions that we can take purposefully to enhance our well-being. Now, when I got my degree, I was considered an expert in human behavior. And that meant that I knew all about Freud, I knew all of the psychosexual stages, I knew about the id and the ego and the superego, and I was very well versed in that. I also knew how to teach a rat to press a lever and get a food pellet. And all of this was very foundational in my training, and very fascinating and very interesting. And I'm glad that I learned all of it. The only problem was that as this expert in human behavior that I was, what I didn't really get was how to figure out how to deal with my own life and my own hard times. And that was not part of my training. And so when it came time for me to embark on my own career, it began at UCLA, teaching and helping undergraduate students to thrive in their life. And there were 25,000 students undergrad, and my job was to help them enhance their well-being. And so what I realized that I really wanted to do was to take all of the science and the theories that I learned and transform it into something practical that students could really use to enhance their well-being. And one of the people, my first rock star that I want to introduce you to, you may know him already, is John Kabat-Zinn. John Kabat-Zinn is a professor emeriti at the University of Massachusetts, and he created the renowned stress reduction clinic. And if any of you watch Oprah, he was on this Sunday, Super Soul Sunday. And we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about his work later, but he had a phrase that when I heard it, I realized that this was the motto for all of the work that I do. And it's this: you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. And I think in life, this is life. Life has good things and it has challenging things, and so there's really not a lot that we can do to change all of our circumstances, but what we can do is learn how to surf them and learn how to navigate them. So I realized that my job at UCLA was to be a surfing teacher, and that's what I set out to do. So the first thing that I worked on was a course called Life Skills. And this course was for undergraduate women, not because women have more problems than anybody else, but because we had a grant. And so we started there, although the class later expanded to men and women. But initially the class was designed to focus on giving them research-based strategies to navigate the ups and downs of their life. And you might say, well, what kind of problem does a 20-year-old have? Well, lots of them. They're dealing with anxiety about the future. You know, I've worked so hard in school, what's going to happen when I graduate? Will I get a job? Will I make it or will I fail? How am I doing in school? It's very pressure-filled. I have so many classes. I'm working. Complexities with relationships, with roommates, with friends, with family members, with romantic partners. Feeling lonely because now I'm away from school, away from my support system for the first time, trying to navigate this world alone. So there's a lot of emotional issues that students are dealing with. And so they were really ripe for an intervention to really give them some skills so that they can learn how to save their life. And what we found after assessing the students was that by learning these simple skills across numerous measures, their well-being was improved. Across 5 different measures, they just felt better about their lives. Anecdotally, they would tell me that they were just happier, they were calmer, they weren't so nervous. One student said, you know, when I took my midterm, usually I'm all freaked out about it, but I took it and I was calm and I wasn't upset and I did well, but what's wrong with me? Something's wrong with me. It's as if it became so normative to feel stressed that when they felt well, it felt like something was wrong. The response to the class and the changes the students saw was so gratifying, and I was so thankful to see that these tools could really make a difference in their lives. But what happened next was something that I had not anticipated at all. And that is that my students started to tell me that their mothers were calling them on a regular basis to find out what they were learning, either because they saw such a change in their daughters or because their daughters were learning skills that they wanted to know because they had never learned these things before. And if you think about it in your own life, most of us have never really learned the skills that we need to navigate our life. And so I realized that you don't need to be just 20 years old to need to know how to do these things. It's something that we all need to know. So that led me to my next question, and that is, how do you thrive in life no matter where you are in life? Because if you're lucky to live long enough, you know that life has lots of pieces to it. It has the wonderful pieces. You fall in love, maybe you have a career, maybe you become a parent, you travel, you have passion. And it also has the difficult, challenging times. There may be illness, divorce, loss. And how do you navigate those different experiences in a way that I call skillful? It doesn't mean you're going to be jumping up, being happy every moment. But if you can navigate in a way that's skillful, you will thrive. And so, trying to figure out what does that mean led me to a researcher at USC. And his name was Joel Millam, and he works in the area of preventive medicine. And what he studies is the impact of major life events on people. So I called him up and I said, Joel, do you think when difficult things happen in life, you know, the really hard stuff, do you think that it's possible to bounce back? And he said, yes, Darlene, it is very possible that you could have something hard happen and bounce back to be the person that you were. But actually, there's something beyond that. And I said, well, what could be beyond that? He said, it's possible to not only come back to the person you were, but it's also possible to go and become stronger, to grow, and to be more integrated than you were before. To not be less than you were, or even the same that you were, but to be more. And that is positive growth, also called post-traumatic growth. Now, when I heard this, I got very excited, because at the time, I had never heard this before. I'd heard of post-traumatic stress, but I hadn't heard of post-traumatic growth. So I immediately wanted to know more about it, partially because there was a skeptical side of me that wanted to know, can this really be true? So I started to look at the research, and what I found out that it is indeed true. And as you think about it, it makes sense. One of the things that we're learning from neuroscience is this concept of neuroplasticity. And what that basically means is that your brain is capable of growing and changing throughout your lifespan. There was a time when we used to think that your brain kind of stopped and it was fully baked when you're about 5 or 6 or maybe 20, and that was it. But what we're learning now is that you continue to grow and evolve throughout your entire life. And so it makes sense that when things happen, you can adapt and you can grow from them. So one of the things I always want to know is how. It's wonderful to have theories. It's wonderful to have science. We need that. But we need a strategy. How do I grow? How do I become more than I was before? And that set me off into finding out what strategies we can use and strategies that we can teach people to use so that they can have these experiences. So I'm going to share with you 5 resilience strategies. And these strategies will be relevant to you whether you're trying to reinvent yourself or you're going through a difficult time or you're just dealing with San Diego traffic. They can be relevant to you even if your life is going really well and you just want to enhance where you are. So they're both preventative and prescriptive. So what I want to do is to set the stage a bit so you can get a little bit of context about where these strategies are coming from. The first premise is to understand that we are interactive beings. And that means that we have thoughts and we have emotions and we have a physical body that interacts with each other. And you probably
You speak slow. I mean, fucking bad.
Howard, like the rest of us, you've been trying to make sense of this pandemic and its implications for the economy and for companies. What conclusions have you reached?
Well, the most important conclusion, Eric, is that, as I put it, we all have the same information about the present and the same ignorance about the future. There are very few facts about the future, and there are very few historical precedents or patterns to rely on.
That's true. I'm not going to deny it. But the question every investor is confronted with right now is, how do you put capital at risk with any degree of confidence when the outlook is perhaps, as you say, more uncertain than at any time in modern history?
And that is, of course, the great dilemma, because investing is only about positioning your capital to profit from future developments. And yet, I always say we don't know what the future holds, more so today probably than at any other time in my life. I think the first thing you have to assume is that life will go on. We will continue to have an economy. We will return to shopping and working and eating in restaurants and children going to schools and people traveling and taking vacations and so forth. But of course, we also have to make allowances for the possibility that life will be different than it was in the past. I always say that the 4 most dangerous words in the world are "it's different this time," because people use those words to rationalize breaks from the past. Well, today we're living through a massive break from the past. There will be differences this time, and we have to try to imagine them and allow for the possibility in our analysis.
What kinds of differences do you anticipate?
Obviously, many people have been somewhat productive working from home. I feel I've been probably as productive as ever in the last 2 months. And I say, well, now tell me again why I have an office and why I go there, and so forth. So that could be a big difference. We don't know, but it would change a lot. And restaurants, sports events, hotels, business travel, cruise ships, shopping malls. Many of these things are now in a state of flux, but we have to make assumptions about them in order to be able to move forward.
Well, speaking of assumptions, the market, as it always does, has divided itself into two camps. There are those who are optimistic about controlling the pandemic and reviving growth. And there are those. Which camp do you fall into?
Well, I think that the real divide, Eric, is the ones who think it'll come easily and quickly, and the ones who think it'll come slowly and haltingly. And I'm in the latter category in that regard. I don't see a immediate V-shaped recovery. Talking about the possible recovery using different letters, V, U, W. Partner Bruce Karsh talks about an L-shaped recovery. Some people talk about the Nike swoosh. I think that we won't have a continuous uplift of good news. We'll have good news lift mixed with bad news.